Hey everyone, and welcome. If you're learning Java, you've probably heard about how tricky it can be to manage big projects. Well, today, we're going to break down a tool that will completely change the game for you, Apache Maven. Let's dive right in. And right off the bat, a huge shout out to Dr. Sasan Azizian. This whole explainer is based on his fantastic materials, which he put together specifically to help Java students like you get a real handle on Maven. It's an absolutely essential tool if you're serious about Java. So let's kick things off with a question I think we've all felt. Have you ever been stuck for hours searching online for the right jar files, downloading them, and then trying to figure out where the heck they're supposed to go? It's a total headache, right? Well, thankfully, there's a much better way. All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll take a quick look at how things were before Maven. Then we'll get into what Maven actually is, unpack the magic of dependencies, figure out how it finds libraries, and then dig into the all-important POM.xml file. Finally, we'll see it all come together. To really appreciate why Maven is such a big deal, we gotta go back in time a little bit to what you might call the dark ages of Java. Before tools like this, building a project was, well, it was a mess. Super tedious and super easy to mess up. Back then, you'd write your code, and then you'd have to go to the command line and type out these crazy long, super complicated Java commands. And if you needed any external libraries, you had to manually list out every single jar file in something called the class path. If you made one tiny typo in that path, boom, your whole build failed. It was so fragile. Now, things did get a little better with a tool called Ant. Ant let you write a script, a build.xml file, to run all those commands for you. That was a big step up. But, and this is a big but, you still had to go find and download all the jar files yourself. The main problem, managing those libraries or dependencies, was still totally on you. And this is where our hero, Apache Maven, steps onto the scene. It was literally created to solve all of this build and library management chaos for good. So, what is Maven really? At its heart, it does two critical jobs. First, it's a build tool, which means it automates the whole process of compiling your code, running tests, and packaging it up. And second, it's a dependency management tool, which is a fancy way of saying it automatically finds and downloads all the external libraries or project needs. So why bother using it? Well, there are three huge reasons. First, as we said, it automatically downloads all those libraries for you. No more hunting. Second, it gives you simple standard commands, like mvn package, that work the same way for every single Maven project. And third, it makes sure your project builds the exact same way everywhere, on your computer, your friend's computer, or a server. That consistency is a lifesaver. Okay, let's get into what I think is the most magical part of Maven, dependencies. This is really the secret sauce for how your project gets all the tools it needs to run. And it's where Maven is just so cool. So, what's a dependency? It's actually super simple. It's just any external library, a jar file that your code depends on to work. For instance, if you want to parse JSON data, your project might have a dependency on a library like Gooson. And just look at the difference here. The old way was a pain. Search online, download the file, mess with project settings, just a chore. And the Maven way, you just add a tiny little chunk of text to a file. That's it. Seriously. Check this out. This little XML block is all Maven needs. You give it the group, the name, and the version of the library you want. In this case, GOSN version 2.11.0. But here's the real magic. Maven doesn't just download Gleason, it also figures out everything that Gleason itself needs to run, and it downloads all of those libraries for you too. That's called transitive dependency management, and it saves you from a world of hurt. So you're probably wondering, okay, that's cool, but how does it find all that stuff from just a little piece of text? Well, the answer is a really smart system of what we call repositories. Maven basically uses two kinds of libraries. First, you have your local repository. This is just a folder on your own computer that acts as a cache. Once Maven downloads something, it keeps a copy here. The second kind is a remote repository, like Maven Central. Think of this as a gigantic public library on the internet that holds millions of open-source Java libraries. And this process is what makes it so efficient. When you tell Maven to build your project, it reads your list of dependencies. First, it looks in your local repository on your computer. If the library is already there, awesome, it just uses it. If not, then it goes out to the remote repository online, downloads it, and saves a copy in your local cache for next time. Super smart. We've said this a few times, but let's really focus on the brain of the whole operation, the POM.xml file. The best way to think about it is as the complete recipe for your entire project. Right at the top of every POM.xml file, you'll find these three key tags. We call them the project coordinates. The group ID is usually your organization. The artifact ID is the unique name for this project. And the version is, well, it's the version number. Think of it like this. These three things together, the group, the name, and the version, create a totally unique ID for your project's final file, like its jar. This makes sure that your project can be uniquely identified among the millions of other projects out there in the Maven world. Okay, so let's put it all together. What actually happens when you type a command in the terminal? This is where all that theory becomes real. When you run a simple command like mvn package, it kicks off this whole automated symphony of events. First, Maven goes and finds all your dependencies. Then it compiles all of your Java code. After that, it runs any automated tests you've written. And finally, if everything looks good, it packages up all your code into a single jar file that you can run or share. All of that from just one command. So let's do a quick recap. The main thing to remember is that Maven automates everything about building your project and managing its libraries. The POM.xml file is your central command center. Dependencies are just libraries that Maven finds and downloads for you, using that clever system of local and remote repositories. And the bottom line? Adding a powerful new library to your project is as easy as adding a few lines of text. So now you have this power to pull in almost any open-source Java library out there and build really complex, amazing things with just a single command. The only question left is, what are you going to create? Thanks so much for watching.